Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. What follows is an interview I did with Martin Kenny that was originally planned to be the lead-in to the geocentric cosmic clock and calendar presentation. We decided to take a different route, and this discussion is not included in the cosmic clock video, but the conversation with Martin was excellent, and I thought it was well worth releasing on its own merits. Please refer to the link below to Martin's Cosmic Clock presentation after taking a listen to this show. And so without further ado, here's Martin. Well, folks, Martin Kenny is back with us today. The last time Martin was on was back in December of 2017, and he introduced his cosmic egg theory to my audience. And I was personally blown away by it, and Martin, I know a lot of other people were also. It is, to me, the next logical step that we need to take once we establish that we're living on a flat plane. There's got to be more to it. And you took the steps doing the research based on syncretism to understand what those next steps are. And it's starting to really roll out now. I think your theory is really beginning to blossom. We're going to do maybe 45 minutes of an hour discussion here, and then you're going to get right into your cosmic clock presentation and the research that you've done there. So before we get started, I want folks to know that this is really part two of a two-part series. Part one was all Martin. There is a video that he did going back several weeks ago called Cosmic Creation, Matter, Time, and Space. You can find it on Martin's YouTube channel, which is called Flat Earth Universe. You can also find it on my channel. It's fantastic work, and I recommend that if you're not familiar with the cosmic egg, that one, you watch the interview that Martin and I did back in December of 2017, then watch the Cosmic Creation, Matter, Time, and Space video, and then come to this one. It'll make a lot more sense to you. So, Martin, welcome back, my friend. I'm so glad that we're having another opportunity to chat.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me back. I know we've been chatting quite a bit and corresponding over the month, but great to be back on a proper chat with you again.
Yes, no, it's going to be great. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about to kick this off, because it just happened, you had an appearance on ITV, and the topic was, were the moon landings real, or were they a hoax? And you were on with an astrophysicist. I think her name was Sarah Bosman, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And the consensus within the alternative research community from the folks that I've been talking to and pulsing is that you did an amazing job. Really, you hit a home run. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. How did you wind up on ITV?
Yeah, it was quite a surreal experience for me. I got a call the day before from ITV, basically saying they were trying to get hold of myself, Darren Nesbitt, and Gary John, who did the first Flat Earth interview, or the first time round. And they wanted us to chat on the breakfast show about the moon landings following Buzz Aldrin's semi-confession. She then said she was going to call me back. She called me back. She said she couldn't get hold of Gary and Darren. They both couldn't make it. And she asked if I could come on and maybe debate an astrophysicist. Now, naturally, the alarm bells went up for me. I instinctively got nervous and thought, well, this could be a trap. If I face up an astrophysicist and not know what I'm going into, this could be extremely bad for myself and for the truth movement, I suppose. So I declined. That was my instinctive reaction. I declined. I told them, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go into a debate on my own against an astrophysicist because I'm not prepared, especially because you've given me less than 24 hours to prepare. So long story short, they sort of almost begged me to come on and said, look, we really want to do this. We really want to make this happen. Is there anything we can do to reassure you, for you to be able to come onto the show? So I said, can you give me some time to think about it? Give me a couple of hours, which they did. And when I hung up the phone, I thought about it. And after much thought, I decided that, well, if I don't do this and they call someone else, a random person who's a so-called truther, who might not even be a flat earther, to defend this, to defend the hoax side, and that person doesn't do it justice, I'll be kicking myself because I had the opportunity to have a voice, to say something. So I thought, well, if I don't do it, someone else will. So I might as well do it. I might as well take that responsibility if it's falling on my shoulders. So I agreed on the proviso that I wouldn't be ambushed. So I made it very clear that I didn't want to be ambushed. I didn't want to be hoodwinked. I wanted to be clear about what questions I would be asked, in what format, and I wanted to be as fair as possible, a fair debate, and not just one-sided from the presenter's point of view. So they agreed and said they'll do that, and I actually said that if they didn't, I was going to walk out mid-interview in front of live TV. I made it clear that I would walk out if I felt cornered. So they agreed to it, and less than 24 hours later, I found myself in the studio, and I was debating Sarah Bosman.
It was very interesting because I thought that the hosts, some people may disagree with me, but I thought overall they were very fair with the way they approached the discussion, Martin. Did you feel that way?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I didn't feel ambushed or anything. I felt very comfortable. I even think that Eamon, the gentleman host, I think he was more on the hoax side. And he's got a conspiratorial disposition anyway. He's got a radio show that he does, separate from ITV. And he was telling me that a couple of weeks ago he did a chat with, what's his name, the reptilian guy?
David Icke?
David Icke, yeah. So he says, I did a show with David Icke, and it was very intriguing and eye-opening, and, there are things that I agreed with and things that I didn't agree with. So he actually took my details and said he'd want to do a show with me in the next few weeks or months or whatever. So I could be doing that again on his radio show.
Very interesting. That's very interesting. And Sarah seemed like a very nice lady, but she did appear very rattled. That was my takeaway from the interview, because you, Martin, were very calm, cool, and collected. You seemed very relaxed, and Sarah did not. She did look like she had gotten her cage rattled during the interview. Did you pick up on anything like that, or was that something I'm just reading into?
Yeah, no, I definitely did. I must say I was extremely nervous on my way there. And there's this sort of the back casting room. There's a lounge where we wait, and before we go on, like half an hour before. So we were both sat in that lounge, and we had a brief conversation, just pleasantries. And I knew straight away that calmed my nerves when I spoke to her, because I could tell she was clearly underestimating me. She came in with this thing that I'm a scientist and I'm debating this YouTube conspiracy guy. So, I've got this under my belt. I certainly felt that sense coming from her, that air of confidence coming from her. And at that point, I knew that her underestimating me was going to be her weakness. So, and certainly when we were debating, she was definitely rattled, definitely. In fact, after the show, it's not a nice thing at all. I really felt bad because she was quite teary. She had teary eyes. And I really felt bad. But at the same time, obviously, I was there on a mission.
Well, what happened was you prepared and she did not. She took it for granted. And so what happened was she had somebody up there that was able to hold their own and present very well. And she got the wind knocked out of her sails is what happened. And there were times, it was only about 7 or 8 minutes, the interview, 10 minutes tops. But I was watching Sarah and I thought to myself, wow, she looks like a deer in the headlights. And when she showed that picture and you said, well, if I showed you a picture of a unicorn, that was, boy, oh boy, she looked like she wanted to hide under the table at that point.
Yeah. I mean, and you got to remember as well that I was up all night, Mike. I slept 2 hours preparing for that.
Wow.
So I was up all night. I went to bed at 4 in the morning. I was awake at 6 in the morning to catch a train into London. So I had no sleep whatsoever. I was so nervous. I hadn't eaten, so I didn't eat anything for breakfast. And we went on at 10:30 in the morning. So I was hungry. I was tired. So it was purely adrenaline, or the Holy Spirit, if you like, that was literally pushing me through. I was in the zone, I suppose. But yeah, I was up all night searching, and I didn't even get through half my notes. There was so much more I could have said that I had in my notes, I had a conclusion that I was going to present that I think was just going to completely shut everything down, and I never got to present it. But anyway.
Yeah, that's okay because I know it's probably not okay for you, but I have to tell you, as somebody on the outside looking in and watching it, you did an outstanding job. Now, I'm going to put the link to that interview in the description box below, folks, so that you can watch it. The response, Martin, from the alternative research community and the flat earth community obviously was very, very positive. I did take note that some flat earthers, notable flat earthers, did not post the interview, so I find that a little interesting. You would think that all for one, one for all, but I guess maybe that's not the case. More alarming to me, though, and maybe alarming is not the right word, but I did take a look, I did a search on the interview, and of course I saw all of these comments on the mainstream media, on Twitter, where it was, man, they were just venomous, just really, really nasty, nasty comments addressed toward you because how dare you question the moon landings? And I know you, before we talked here, you said that you took a look at some of those comments and they were really nasty.
Yeah, definitely. But before I address that one, when I got the invite to do the debate, as soon as it was confirmed, I posted up, the invite on Facebook. Basically, I put up the announcement that I'd been invited on ITV, the breakfast show, to debate an astrophysicist. I put all the details there. And I must say, I was overwhelmed by the number of people who engaged, general flat earthers, not big names, just normal people, and the amount of advice and links and guidance and, just support that I got from posting that was just immense. And that really gave me fire to go in quite confident. And it helped me also format what I was going to say and how I was going to say it, because I was able to gauge what people wanted me to say. So as I was reading the comments and what people were saying they would say, I picked out the most highlighted points that everyone was talking about, and that's what I said I was going to focus on. So I wasn't going to deviate from that. I was going to highlight the telemetry data. I was going to highlight the moon, the whole thing of faking the moon, and other bits as well. So I must say I was overwhelmed by that. Going to the comments, yeah, you're right. The comments were just atrocious from the mainstream side of things.
Yep.
Some of them were near death threats. People were so upset that ITV had given airtime to a nut job, to a crazy conspiracy theorist, to an idiot, and all kinds of things. So it was fascinating to just see how people who aren't in our circles reacted and gauged that whole scenario. And as far as they are concerned, there's nothing to question. There's absolutely nothing to question, like how dare this even be mentioned anywhere near TV or anywhere for that matter.
Yeah, I read them, Martin, and it makes you pause and it makes you understand that there really are two realities, right? There's a chasm that divide is huge. Folks that just don't want to open their minds. They really are very happy being where they're at right now. And I realize that everybody has their own rate and pace. Some people will begin to awaken, others won't. Others will, when they begin to awaken, will take it further, and some won't. So it's really staggered as far as where people are at, where they're going to go, if they go anywhere. But the thing that really, really bothers me is how nasty and ugly. And this is something I've talked about on many, many shows, Martin, where the lack of civil discourse is stunning, absolutely stunning. But again, you did a fabulous job. It is what it is. It was a hoax, folks. If you're listening to this and we're surprising you by even having this conversation, I highly recommend that you start researching what happened with the Apollo missions because it's a big lie. Now, Martin, let me ask you a question that before we got to talking here on the show, I ran this by you. Whenever I talk to folks about geocentrism, and I'm talking about people that are open-minded, I continually bump into, I hear you, Mike. Yes, Okay, yeah, I guess it could be flat. It could be a stationary plane, but I don't really understand at the end of the day why it's that important. What does it matter? What does it matter whether it's flat, it's round, it's a triangle? How do you answer that question?
Well, that's a question that I've been asked many times over, and it's a question that I first asked myself when I first came across the flat Earth, and I was somewhere in the middle of the rabbit hole. And the answer came quite quickly for me, at least. And it's quite simple, you know. If you don't know where you are, then what could be more important than that, right? If you don't know where you are, it means you are lost. So if we are spiritual beings having a physical existence and we don't know where we are right now, that means we are lost souls, right? So the first thing before we can find ourselves is to understand where we geographically are within the universe. And then only then, I think, can we truly then find where we spiritually are in the universe. But not only that, if you don't know where you are, how can you know where you're going or where you're meant to be going, right?
Right.
So me, it's just a logical step. So truth should not have limits. Truth should be open to everything, starting with who am I? Where am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? What is the point of all of this? I think these are the 5 most important questions as far as I'm concerned. And if you're not asking these 5 questions, then I think you're missing the boat.
Yeah, that reminds me, and I'm going to paraphrase a lyric that George Harrison had. I think it was on his last album before he passed away. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And your answer is perfect, because it would be like somebody saying, you know, they're lost, like you said, they're in their car and they don't know where they're at. Let's just say they have no GPS, there's no map, and then thinking to themselves, well, it doesn't matter whether I'm lost or not.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so I think that that's a great illustration of why it's very important. And so then let's take that in the next step further, right? So you and I, we've had discussions on and off, because you and I communicate, you know, not just with doing shows, we talk offline, and you know, we've had conversations about what I refer to as the mainstream flat Earth community. You know, the Earth is flat, there's a dome, they're hiding God. And they don't understand why it is that the cosmic egg theory, why that's important. So you just explained why geocentrism or the flat Earth, just knowing that is important. But why is the next step, your research, why is it even more important?
Well, one thing I've had to reconcile with, you know, when I became a flat earther, my instinct was to try and learn as much as I can about this topic, about where I am. I needed to know as much as I could. So I started researching, I started questioning, and the more I questioned and researched, the more answers I got. And for me, that never stopped. I never got to a point, in fact, it hasn't stopped. I've never reached a point where I've gone, all right, I've got the answers now. This is what it is. I'm stopping to ask questions. This is it. I'm done. Because as far as I'm concerned, truth never ends. There's no end to knowledge, to gnosis. When I realized that, okay, it's flat, it's motionless, there's most likely something above us, what people call the dome, or electromagnetic, or I then went on to the next stage. You know, what is that dome? What could it be? Is it glass? Is it water? Is it a torus field? So I did research on there, and I found out that it's an electromagnetic torus field, possibly with watery qualities, what people will call plasma. You know, the next question was, well, what's beyond that? Right? There must be something beyond that. And then I realized that, oh, there's probably more lands beyond that, and many cultures and scriptures talk about this. So a lot of the stuff that I was finding, it wasn't just stuff that was coming out of my head. I was researching it. It's well documented. It's out there, as I've shown in the last video that I did. And I couldn't understand for the life of me why other flat earthers weren't seeing it, weren't understanding it, weren't getting it. Because to me, it was obvious. It was clear as daylight, and it still is. It's a no-brainer. And it took me a while to understand why certain flat earthers, mainstream flat earthers, are stopping at a certain point. And I think wisdom kicked in at some point, and I realized that, you know, we're all on separate journeys. You know, this is a journey. Life is a journey. What's happening now is a journey of human consciousness. And like any journey, everyone is going to be at a different stage. Others are faster than others are slower, others want to get to the end quicker, others enjoy playing the game in the middle. There are all kinds of factors. Others are still lost, even in that awakened state. They're still confused. Others are angry. Others are stuck in dogmatic belief systems like religion, etc., etc. So there are many things at play with all of this. And I've learned not to expect other people to be where I'm at. And also for others to also be patient with me. So there are people that I think are ahead of me in terms of this journey. And I would ask them to be just as patient with me. You know, recently I got in touch with a friend who I thought was completely wrong about something. And it's only the last couple of weeks I've gone back and thought, oh my God, you were right. You know, I wasn't quite seeing the picture as big as you were at that time. So yeah, I've realized that we're all at different stages, and you know, we just got to be patient with one another. You know, those who haven't even woken up to the fact that the earth is flat, we've got to be patient with them. Those who have not reached the next stage beyond the dome, we've got to be patient with them. Those who have not reached the next stage beyond the cosmic egg, we've got to be patient with them, and so forth and so forth and so forth.
Yeah, to me, your work is so important because it is really getting humans to understand existence, the path, the learning, the development. This is how I see it, Martin, your work. And I watched an amazing documentary, and I sent it over to you. You probably haven't gotten to it yet. It's long. It's over 2.5 hours. But
I'm halfway through.
You're halfway through it. The 21 Faces of God by Robert Bonimo.
Beautiful.
It's an amazing piece of work, and it's based upon the tarot cards.
Mm-hmm.
And he explains them in sequence. And I was watching that documentary for 2.5 hours, and I kept flashing back to your work. I kept flashing back to your cosmic clock because, you know, you have shown me the cosmic clock. You've explained it to me.
Yeah.
And all I kept thinking to myself, Martin, is all of this stuff is starting to come together and it's starting to interlock.
Yeah.
For those that have eyes to see, ears to hear, those that really want to know, you can see that all of this occulted or hidden knowledge, if you look for it, it is there.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll start to come together. So the reason why I sent you that documentary was because I really thought you would think, hey, you know, this really does complement the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. I've just finished watching, well, I'm halfway through, like I said. I was watching it just before we got on the show. And yeah, I was completely blown away by the synchronicities that he highlights with esoteric teachings and what I found in my own research that wasn't quite related to that, but it's saying exactly the same thing, basically. So I was, you know, it's a great feeling when I see something like that because it's confirmation that I'm at least on the right track.
Well, you know what it says to me, too, is that the Creator is in control.
Yeah.
This is something where a lot of people fall off the track. They think that, you know, where is God? Where's the Creator? Where's Source? How come all of this stuff is allowed to happen? How come there's so much pain and agony and so on? Why are there so many challenges? And what you understand is that we are going through a process. The Creator has laid out a path that the soul has to travel through in order to develop, to learn, and to ascend. Essentially, I guess I'll use the term ascend.
Yep.
So, and I think with me, once I got my head wrapped around the fact that that is what it is and how it works, I relaxed a whole lot more. I have to tell you, Martin, it's not that, you know, I don't take things seriously when I have to. It's just that inner knowing or that inner standing, how you would phrase it, really calms you down, and it allows you to put things into perspective. And I found that I'm better at making decisions. I make better choices because I am not distracted by the things that used to distract me.
Oh, beautiful, Mike. Absolutely beautiful. And that's exactly the same with me. The reason why I keep questioning and keep digging deeper is because I'm looking for closure. My soul is looking for answers, and mainly for closure, you know, and I can't get closure unless I can see the bigger picture. So the more I find And the more the pieces come together, the more closure it gives my soul, the more understanding I get as to why I am here, why we are here, where we are going, where we came from, and why this is happening. And once I got a full grasp, at least as full as I can, in this level of consciousness, it's given me peace, Mike. It's given me immense peace. And like you say, I make better decisions now. I'm not easily frightened anymore or agitated anymore because I understand the process. I get it. I get the process. You know, there's a reason, there's a season for everything under the sun. There's nothing new under the sun. And once you understand what that concept, the true deep meaning of that concept, that there is a season for everything under the sun, everything just makes sense. It's just figuring out what those seasons are, right? How they work, when they change, how they change, why they change, and what they're changing to. And once you do that, you become a prophet, a magician, a wayseer, call it what you like, right? You become enlightened. That's what all those esoteric words are, Illuminati. You know, a Freemason, a master builder. You're building your own reality. That's what Freemason means, a free builder. You're not working for someone else. You're working for your own self, spiritually and consciously. You're creating your own reality. So we're taught to fear all these things, but that's all those words mean. They're not scary things. Yes, they've been twisted into evil things and they've been hijacked by dark forces, but fundamentally that's what they are. So yes, the work is important. Asking deeper questions, getting deeper understanding of who we are, where we're going is extremely, extremely important because at least for me, it gives me peace of mind and closure. I have no fear for anything anymore at all. I don't fear death. I don't fear persecution. I don't fear pain. I don't fear anyone. I fear nothing because I understand on a deep, deep level. I understand on a deep, deep level what this is, what I am, why I'm here, and where I'm going.
You know what woke me up? I was thinking about this yesterday, Martin. I was thinking about, well, what got me to where I'm at today? Well, first of all, I had a very profound spiritual experience going back, I want to say maybe a decade ago. And then I would say over the last 2 years or so, still am on a very spiritual path. But there were 3 people that I connected with that taught me to step even further, to continue the search and to really turn the light bulb up, make it illuminate even more. And I'm going to tell you who those people are. One is you. Your cosmic egg theory blew me away. The second person was Michael Joseph, and when he breaks down the occult and he explains how it's all playing into the mystery religions.
Yep.
I'll simplify it to that level. And then there was the documentary that you and I just talked about, the Robert Bonomo documentary. So it's interesting how different people get introduced into your life that enrich your life. They can enrich you not only from the perspective of the physical reality, but also from the metaphysical or spiritual awareness that we all should be seeking. I'm telling you, it's no lie. I thought about that yesterday. I said, over the last 2 years, there were 3 people that really brought tremendous amount of consciousness, awareness to me, really illuminated that path. And that was you, Michael, and now Robert. And I'm going to have Robert on the show. We've been trading emails back and forth, and we're going to talk about his documentary, and we're going to talk about his work because it's fabulous. So anyway, I don't mean to pat you on the back too much there, but your work has been amazing to me.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And that's all I ask, that even if one person resonates with it and it helps one person get to where they want to get to or need to get to, I'm happy with that. I wasn't looking to change the world. And likewise, there are people in my life who've completely touched me deep within my soul. that it shook and moved me into a different dimension of thinking, into a different realm of being and understanding. So I think that's just a ripple effect. It's the butterfly effect, so they call it, isn't it?
So, Martin, with all the work that you're doing, are you doing it still pretty much solo, or have others contacted you and said, hey, I've got research that will complement your work and let's work together? Have you any kind of teamwork or collaborating going on?
I'll be honest with you, Mike. I think apart from you, really, I think you've been the one consistent person in my life on this journey in terms of my research and stuff. So, I want to thank you for that tremendously. But no, I've not had many people. I've not had much support from the flat Earth community, so to speak, the greater whole, or rather the big channels or the big names, so they call themselves. It's been a small, steady trickle forward. And I kind of understand it because it is a lot of information. When I step back and I look at it, going from it's flat with a dome and then talking about beyond that, outside that, it's a lot to take in very quickly. So I understand why maybe it is a trickle, and I get it. But I've also been in touch with Bro Sanchez recently. We've been corresponding back and forth, and it's just been fantastic. We've been sharing ideas because some of his research is very much similar to some of the research that I'm doing. When he talks about ancient cultures and that sort of thing, and cosmic creation. So we're singing from the same hymn sheet, and I think we're going to be doing a couple of shows together where we'll be trying to syncretize our work, discussing. We might disagree on one or two things, but just having a discussion about it, which is fantastic, which I think we need more of. Even if you disagree with me, let's talk about it. Let's discuss it, correct me. Even if we agree to disagree, at least it's out there and we're talking about it.
Yeah, I was watching one of Bro Sanchez's videos, and I'm still watching it. It was 6 hours long.
Yeah.
It's a long one, but I'll make my way through it. What I do is I watch it over multiple nights. Now, let me just ask, Martin, and I don't want to name names, and I know you don't want to either, but why do you think it is that some of the bigger names in the flat Earth community really don't connect into you? Some of them appear to even just avoid you. I don't get it, to be honest with you. I have to be honest, it has irked me because I look at your work and think to myself, this is clearly the next logical step. And if you guys are really, really want to walk the talk as far as truth seeking, then you should be looking at this and we should be having conversations about it, and you should be on other people's shows other than Mike's. But I don't know. I don't know why it is that, are they scared of it, or do you think that maybe perhaps some of them, to be honest with you, I started to think that some of the folks that I didn't think were maybe, tied into agendas, are into agendas. And so I've had to reevaluate some of my connections and networking within the community. And I'm not saying anything negative, folks. All I'm saying is I just had to put the show on pause as far as connecting in with some folks and talking with them and try to assess yes or no. And I don't know, that's kind of where I landed. But why do you think it is that they're avoiding you? Obviously, there's the religious aspect of it, the institutionalized religion, mostly Christianity. The Christian flat earthers are really not going to touch your stuff because it just, in their minds, it flies in the face of their belief system.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about that, and I'll be quiet.
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of the stuff it's fear, like you said. You mentioned fear. I think it's fear because I'm saying things that are outside all the boxes. Every single one of the boxes that we've been given and conditioned, everything I'm saying goes against those boxes. So in a way, I'm insulting everyone at the same time because I talk about veganism passionately. So there are many flat earthers who are not vegans. So they might agree with the flat earth stuff, the cosmic egg stuff, but because they don't agree with the vegan stuff, they're like, well, I'm not going to support that. I go against religion. So again, some of them might be vegan and might be flat earthers, but they're religious. Some of them might not be religious. So there are all these boxes that people are still in, and they don't know that they're in these boxes. And I think because a lot of my work talks about these and highlights them and points them out, it makes people very, very uncomfortable. I suspect. I also think that, unfortunately, for whatever reasons, whether it was orchestrated or planned, when this flat Earth movement started, I've noticed there were certain trigger words that came with being a flat earther. One of them was, space does not exist. I remember when I first found flat Earth, everyone was saying, oh, space does not exist, it's all fake. The Earth is flat, space is fake. Aliens don't exist, there are no extraterrestrials, it's us and a dome, and that's it. Right? So that was the mantra that everyone was saying. So it's almost been ingrained within the flat Earth community. So when I came along and started saying, oh, hang on a minute, guys, space might actually exist. Actually, it does exist. You know, maybe we were wrong about that. Maybe space does exist, but maybe the concept is slightly different. But it does exist. Maybe there are alien or extraterrestrial forces, after all, even in a geocentric model. So because I was now saying this and going against the mainstream flat Earth mantra, again, it ruffled people's feathers because it's like, hang on a minute, who's this guy? Why is he saying this? So people get suspicious because, again, they've been brainwashed, I have to say, and conditioned to think in a certain flat Earth way.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. There is a brainwashing and a conditioning that took place. And maybe we can get into some of those terms in a little bit, Martin, about space, extraterrestrials, and aliens, and we can tie it into your cosmic egg theory and why it is that, as you and I have talked about before, that NASA is not telling the complete truth, but there is a thread of truth in what they're telling you. The thing is, you have to be able to pick up on the occulted message that they're putting out there. They're communicating to us, but they're communicating to us in a camouflaged way. But once you're able to peel back the onion, you can begin to understand that there is an underlying level of truth behind what it is they're telling us. But one of the other things, before we get there, I wanted to ask you about is what I've noticed is, and this is something that I catch flack for sometimes, is, I talk about the fact that the example I use is that football field is 100 yards. 50 yards of it is the physical experience, and the other 50 yards is your spiritual experience. If you don't play all 100 yards, then you're missing a big part of what you are here to do, what you're here to experience. And what I've noticed is that a lot of people in the truth community, and I'm not just going to pick on the flat earth community, but the truth community in general, is that they only focus on the physical aspects of their life. So they never really look into the spiritual piece of it. And when I say look into it, that's probably not even the right way to phrase it. They don't embrace it, is what I should say.
Yeah.
So what they do is they'll throw, a bone out there and say, yes, I believe in God. Of course there's a God. There's a creator. How did everything get here? And that's it. And they go right back to focusing on all of the physical, material world aspects of their research or whatever it is that they're talking about. I think that's another piece of it, because when you bring in the cosmic egg discussion, we're getting into the spiritual aspects of this, the metaphysics of it all. And I think that there's a lot of people that are just not there. Their minds are not there, maybe even where they're at as far as clearly their spiritual development is not there, or they believe they have spiritual development, but it's within the confines of institutionalized religion, which, in my view, and I've said this many times, is not spirituality. So do you think that the spiritual aspect of it, when you talk about it, is something else that essentially steers some of them away and makes them uncomfortable?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. There's that old saying, everyone wants the world to change, but no one wants to change themselves.
Yep.
And this is a typical example of that. So many truthers find out that we've been lied to, we've been deceived, and they want things to change right now. We need to get to the bottom of this. We need to find out who's doing this to us, why they're doing it, and we need to change it. But the moment you turn that finger around and say, well, why don't you change first? They don't like that, or they're not ready for that. When you say to them, if you want all the killing to end on earth, if you want all the murder to end, all the suffering, Why don't you start by ending it yourself? Become a vegan. Stop the suffering of other sentient beings. They don't like that. They're not prepared to do that. They're not ready for that. So they want things to change as long as I don't have to change. Another thing is, something I've realized is that most of us when we wake up, in fact, not most of us, all of us, this awakening is an extremely traumatic event for us, for our souls. Realizing that your reality is nothing like you thought it was, realizing that you don't know who you are or where you are, and you're being lied to, and you don't know who it is. It's extremely traumatic to the soul. And many of us never heal from that trauma. We're still carrying that trauma 2-3 years down the line. We're still angry. We still want revenge. We want someone to be accountable for this. We're looking for someone to blame. Whose fault is it? It's the reptilians, it's Trump, it's the government, it's Obama, it's the Illuminati, these people, it's these people, it's those people. We're all blaming each other still, right? And when we can't find people to blame outside, or when no one's listening, we're turning on each other in the flat earth community, right? These people in the flat earth community. No, it's these people, it's that truther. He's a shill, she's a shill, she's a transvestite, he's this. We're now pointing fingers at each other because we're traumatized. And we haven't dealt with that trauma. We haven't grown out of it. So that next step, I think many people are falling. They're failing to cross that hurdle of getting over the trauma and saying, right, okay, I'm over the trauma. I'm over the anger. I'm over the hurt. I really don't want any bloodshed, or I'm not interested in revenge. I just want to move forward. I want to move forward. I want to go in the right direction. Right? So people aren't ready for that. And I think the last one is there's a lot of ego still within this movement. And that word I know is a very lucid word. But again, when you become a flat earth, and it's happened to me on several occasions, where you have a channel, you have a certain following, you're saying certain things, and along the line, someone else comes along, contradicts what you're saying, and that threatens your position, or you think it threatens your position. And unfortunately, a lot of the early truthers, the big ones, I've realized, many of them make money off this, off the YouTube channels, Patreon, and all these other things. So they now have a vested interest. So at this point, your truth is now jaded, because you might see something and you might think, there's this cosmic egg thing you might be onto something, but all this time I've been talking about space doesn't exist. I can't really say that now because I'll contradict what I've been saying. Or it might upset some of my viewers. I might lose some of my patronage and my living. So they begin to censor themselves. It's a way of self-censoring.
That's a very good point. And I know people, friends of mine in the truth community, that are in that very position where they have invested in the heliocentric model, aliens, planets, UFOs, and all this stuff. And they have established themselves in a certain position, doing lectures and so on. And you're absolutely right, Martin. What happens is now they've boxed themselves in, right? So now they feel like I have to continue to put forth what I've been putting forth, because if I switch gears, I'm going to look like a fool. Whereas in my view is, if you come across new information and it resonates with you and it's more truthful, then it's okay to abandon where you were and to move in a better direction. But some folks don't see it that way. They will stay where they're at because they don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I've had to cross that bridge myself a few times, Mike. There were times where I got revelations to something and I thought, wow, this is a bit deep now. This is really going to upset some people in the flat earth community. If I post this on Facebook or I make a video about this, this might be too much. So I found myself questioning, and then I had to stop and think, hang on a minute. Why am I self-censoring myself? This is my ego talking, right? I'm talking about being embarrassed and being ashamed of truth. Be damned with that. I'm going to say it, I'm going to share it, and if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself and I'll apologize down the line. But right now, this is making sense. There's research to back it up. So I'm going to say it. And every time I've said it, I felt a lot better. And, a lot of the times I've been close if not on the money, as far as reactions from the community have been.
And that's part of the conditioning too, when you think about it, right? Where people believe that they can't move off of something. Once you've said it, you better stay there,
Yeah,
because if you don't stay there, then you're a fool, you're a hypocrite,
yeah,
you're a shill, you're whatever. And the truth of the matter is, being a human, you are in a process, or you should be in a process of continual learning and discovery and
absolutely.
exploration. And so there are things that I said that I believed in 10 years ago, Martin, that today I roll my eyes. I think to myself, God, I cannot believe that I used to believe that, or I cannot believe that I used to defend this or that. And I've had to change my positions on things. I'm still changing my position on things. And it is uncomfortable in the beginning because, as you've mentioned, it is a level of conditioning that has been put out there where people believe that, oh boy, I'm going to lose credibility if I shift gears here, if I change my mind, or if I say I made a mistake. And the thing is, no, you're not going to lose credibility. In the end, you're going to lose a lot more credibility if you stay someplace that, where the house of cards just collapse in on you. Then that's a much more embarrassing situation than if you had just said, you know what, this is not working anymore. I'm going to go here and look at this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Mike. I also think that, yeah, well, not I think, I know, like for myself personally, it seems like this idea of being able to change your mind, this idea of being open-minded, began very early on in my awakening. I came across that blood over intent stuff early on through Quasi-Luminous and Devon Magi and all that, and it resonated at the time. And I got it. I understood it. I understood the difference between white magic, black magic. I got it. And I didn't shy away from it. I went in head first. I publicized it. I put on Facebook in front of all my families that I'm doing white magic. I'm spilling my blood for the benefit of all. I did all that, announced it publicly. And people thought I was absolutely bonkers. And I was nervous at the time, thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I'm publicly talking about doing magic. Blood magic, even if it's good magic, even if it's white magic. But I now realize that whole process, that whole point of me going through all of that, the act itself of what I was doing probably didn't really make a big difference. What it did do was it helped my consciousness and my soul overcome the barrier of my ego.
Yes.
Yeah. Because once I've done that, there's nothing to be embarrassed. There's nothing I can say now that's going to be embarrassing. I can't say anything more embarrassing than publicly announcing that I'm spilling my blood and doing white magic.
Yeah.
I mean, what tops that? So, so that whole process, I think, was the universe putting me under a test and saying, if you can do this and get over your ego and your heart and your intent is in the right place, then there's no end to what portals you can open, how far you can go, right? Your mind is truly open if you're open and not afraid to cross this line, right? And then came the whole trip to the North Pole. I announced it. I put my foot down and said, 100%, we are going next year. I put that declaration down. We're definitely going. We did this crowdfunding. We're going to buy a boat, and I announced it to the whole world. And then halfway through it, I'd admit that I'd made a mistake. It's not the right time, right? I made a mistake. I have to wait for the right time. I've jumped the gun. So I had to apologize. I had to eat humble pie. I had to admit. So again, that was a test for my soul, my consciousness, right? Are you genuinely a truth seeker? Or are you in this for your ego? Are you in this for attention? Are you in this for followers? So again, I lost a lot of credibility. Obviously, people looked at me and said, well, this guy's not serious. He's always changing his mind. But I had to do that to prove to myself, to prove to the universe that I am not afraid to change my mind. I'm not afraid to be wrong, and I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong, because I'm solely after the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
It's interesting. I think a lot of us go through that period where we put ourselves out there and we get pummeled. And
yeah.
So what happens is it's like a testing ground. This is how I look at it. So some people will put themselves out there, they'll get pummeled, and they can't take it. And they're like, you know what? I don't like this getting pummeled bit. I don't like being ridiculed. I don't like my family and friends telling me that I'm a lunatic. so they pull back.
Yeah.
Then there are those of us that weather the storm and we get through it.
Yeah.
And once we get through it, it's very freeing.
Oh, yeah.
Because, yes, you took your lumps, you made mistakes, you may have said things that you want to take back. In fact, I know I said things I want to take back. But you also evolve and mature through the process, and you reach a point where you are on better footing going forward because you got that behind you. And you learn from your mistakes, and now when you move forward, you're not going to make those mistakes anymore. You're going to be more prudent in what it is you're going to say, what you're going to research, how you're going to present it, because you're going to make sure, best you can, folks, that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, because you had to go through that process of taking your lumps.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Absolutely. But that's not to say that, for me personally, that I've stopped expressing myself.
Right.
So for instance, I'm talking about 2020 and something happening in 2020 and this big event. So, I'm not going to put any restrictions and fear, because that's what the research is telling me. That's what my journey is telling me. So I'm going to share that. But at the same time, I've got to be smart enough to say, this is not gospel, right? I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. I could have my timings wrong, my dates wrong. I could be reading the whole scenario wrong. But as far as I'm concerned, at this point in time, this is what I found. Here's the research to back it up. And if it does happen, at least we, those who are paying attention, will know what's going on and will be prepared for it.
Right. That's right. Yep. And even if the dates, are not on, Martin, I don't lose any sleep over that, because to me, the underlying research itself is very valid. It's very important to understand. So for me personally, I major on that. Now, if 2020 manifests into something, that's terrific. If it doesn't, it's okay. It really is. It's okay, folks.
Absolutely.
Now, Martin, let me ask you this so we can put this to bed, and then we'll wrap up here, because I know that this is really the introduction to your part 2, which you're working on. The whole thing with NASA is lying all the time. Space is fake. You mentioned this before. So why don't we just take a couple of examples and help the audience to understand when NASA talks about space or extraterrestrials or aliens or going to Mars or the secret space program, what it is that you believe that they're actually making inferences to. So as an example, when they talk about space and someone in the mainstream flat earth community says, there is no such thing as space, space is fake, how do you respond to that? What would you say from a cosmic egg perspective?
From a young age, I think as a teenager, I heard someone quote something. I think it was my English literature teacher, Mrs. Duplessis. And she said something that stuck with me. She said that if you can imagine something, it's most likely possible or exists somewhere in the universe. The fact that you can imagine it, the fact that that word or that thought exists, means that it must be a reality somewhere, somehow, or in some form. And that stuck with me. And when I began this journey and I woke up and I had my awakening, that saying, that sentence, those words came back to me. And I thought to myself, well, NASA, they've got all these theories, they've got all these things that they tell us. And as flat earthers, our instinct is to say it's all a lie, it's all fake, none of it exists, they're just making stuff up. I thought, well, by that logic, it doesn't make sense that they literally are making everything up and everything's a complete, total lie. And they've just somehow concocted this whole thing that sounds plausible. And we believed it out of thin air. It just made no sense. So when I started looking and speaking to, I've got a friend who's a psychologist, and she started telling me about how liars always stick close to the truth. That was my bingo moment. I was like, right, okay. There's something going on here. People like NASA, mainstream science, I don't think they're smart enough, to be honest with you, to have come up with this whole heliocentric model literally out of thin air without a shred of truth in it. Obviously not. All they've done is they've manipulated the original truth, twisted it, they bend it to create a new reality or a new paradigm. But they are working off the foundation of the truth. When I realized this, That's when I went down the journey of trying to de-occult what they were telling us, what they were saying, the truth behind the lies. And once I started doing this from a geocentric point of view, everything literally just came together like a puzzle, literally. One piece after the other, one piece after the other. It all just made sense overnight. But I had to bring down that barrier of being angry and hating NASA and mainstream media and shutting the door to anything they said. I literally had to look at it with an open mind and objectively and embrace it for what it is, and then say to myself, right, where is the truth in this? Rather than looking at it as a lie, I was trying to look at it as a half-truth. So I was approaching all that information with a half-full glass of milk rather than a half-empty one. And that's what I would say to most people. We should not be throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Again, that's another thing that we've been conditioned within the flat earth community, within the truther community. It's almost like a knee-jerk reaction. You're so angry, you hate anything to do with anyone who's lied to you. You immediately discredit anything they have to say. You brand it as a lie, and you shut that door. And perhaps that's what they want. Perhaps that's what they've done. It's all mind games. It's all psychology. And these people are masters of mind games. They've been doing this for thousands of years, as we know, right? They've been manipulating humanity, whoever they are, for a long, long time. So it's a little bit naive and arrogant to think that now I'm a flat earth, I've realized where I am, I'm smarter than them. Absolutely not.
And they do it all the time, Martin. Here's an interesting add-on to what you just explained to us. You know, I've been doing a lot of work into the whole McCartney conspiracy, and so I was in a dialogue with a high-level Mason, and he was explaining to me that in Masonry, they can tell a lot of truth as long as they tell it masterfully. So masterfully speaking, what that means, folks, is that when they present to us or speak to us, it's in layers. So there's the first layer, which is the layer which the most people will grab onto and run with, the profane.
Mm-hmm.
Then below that is a second level, in which more truth is being revealed. And then there is a third layer. And the third layer is where the truth is. This is how they communicate to us. So we know that NASA is a Freemasonic entity, as is everything that is around us in this reality. And so the whole masterfully speaking piece of this, Martin, syncs up very nicely with what you just said about NASA, because what they're doing is they are masterfully presenting, or masterfully and speaking too, as you know, when people watch shows on space and the such. So this is exactly how it works, and I had to learn this myself. I didn't always know this. You know, my research took me certain places, and I wound up speaking to certain people who stopped me and said, hold on a second, you're almost there, but here's something that you need to consider, something else that you need to chew on. And I had to stop and listen to these folks, and once I did, I was able to piece together a lot better about how all this works. And which is, again, there is, like you said, that foundation of truth that they are building upon. And it's just a matter of de-occulting, as you mentioned, in order to really understand what it is they're trying to communicate to us. So, Martin, I know that I've eaten up a lot of your time here, and we're going to have Martin's presentation part 2, which is going to be about the cosmic clock. And so I think what we'll do, Martin, unless you have anything else you want to add, we'll leave it here and then let you tell the rest of the story with your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to end with, I just remembered something that I forgot to mention. I've had a lot of flat earth researchers get in touch with me. Well, not even get in touch with me. I've seen a lot of comments of them saying, this cosmic egg stuff is all just theory. There's no facts behind it. You're just theorizing. You're doing exactly what mainstream science does. You can't back up what you're saying. Let's stick to the facts. Let's stick to to hardcore scientific facts. And the facts are the earth is flat. There's a dome above our heads and we're not moving. Let's stick to that. Otherwise, anything else is confusing people. Now, I'm going to take up query with that. Anyone who believes that, is deluding themselves. Our entire existence is a theory. There are no facts at all. I don't care how many measurements you take. I don't care how many experiments you take. Everything is theoretic, right? We don't know factually 100% if the earth is flat. We don't. Why? Because none of us in the flat earth community have been high enough to physically see it with our own eyes. The whole earth. Right there, it's a theory. None of us know that there is a dome above us. Factually, 100%. Because none of us have ever seen the so-called dome, or whatever you want to call it. As far as I'm concerned, everything is a theory. The facts that we can discern, right, are factual only to a degree. Yes, the earth appears to be a plane. Yes, the earth appears to be non-motionary. It's not moving. Yes, there appears to be something that encompasses the earth. But those are all theories. So all I'm doing is I'm expanding on those theories and saying, right, there are theories that are a little bit more hardcore theory. They're a little bit more closer to fact. Like we're not moving, it's geocentric. But all I'm doing is adding to those theories because everything is ultimately a theory. So those who attack me and saying that I'm just spouting theoretic nonsense, well, so are you. If you think the earth is a certain shape or has a dome above it or has an ice wall, because you've not witnessed any of those things with your own eyes. Is that fair, Mike?
No, I think that's very fair, Martin. And the thing that really bothers me, because I did see one video where you had a cameo in it, and it was basically saying that you're just putting theories out there. And it irritated me because the thing is, your work is based in syncretism. So going back to the ancient civilizations like Egypt, the Greeks, the Norse, the Chinese, the Hindus, the native Indian tribes, the Dogons, this is information that's out there.
Yep.
And to discard that information and just throw it out and just behave as if it doesn't exist and we shouldn't do anything with it is crazy.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. And to think that these ancient civilizations didn't know anything, I mean, that to me is just extremely naive. And it's ignorant to a large degree.
Yep.
So when people go on that little rant about your work being a theory, it goes back to what I said before. There's a big spiritual piece missing. Yeah. And they're focused on the physical aspects only. And what you have to understand, folks, is that you are here to dive into, explore, and to develop your spiritual essence. You may think that sounds like New Age wackiness. Fine. But that's a piece, it's very elusive, and it takes a lot of discipline and focus to get there. It's a lot easier to focus on the physical aspects.
Yep.
But you need the spiritual, metaphysical piece of it in order to complete the puzzle. That puzzle being your existence, your soul's development. So that's what I think, Martin. You know, I did see one video, and it irked me, and I just stopped watching it after that. And I just looked at it as the person who put it together, you don't get it. That was my thought. You don't get it, meaning them. And so, you know, and it's just the way it is. And, you know, it's like what you said earlier when we first got started. Everybody's at a different stage in this process of awakening, you know?
Yeah.
And so people who are saying that, oh, Martin's work, it's just theory, it's not based in any reality, whatever it may be, fine. You're at a certain place, space, and that's where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know, we're not there. We're you and I have in another place in space. And there are people that are beyond us. And there are people beyond the people who are beyond us. Yep. You know, and so that's just the way it is. And it gets to the point where you just have to accept that that's it. And just do your work, put your head down, do your research, present it. And for those, again, who it resonates with, it's going to resonate with them. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There's nothing you and I could do about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, perfectly said, Mike. Perfectly said. You know, we're just trying to make sense of the situation. And that's a great point that you've highlighted, that we cannot just ignore certain information just because we found flat Earth. There are hundreds of cave paintings showing weird beings that are clearly not human. Hundreds, if not thousands. There's literature that goes back hundreds or thousands of years that talk about extraterrestrial beings coming from the heavens or from other places to visit us. Right? Countless texts. There are even carvings, physical carvings of extraterrestrial beings that once visited us. Mythologies. Do we just ignore all of this just because you found flat Earth? Or do we say, right, how does this fit in? Now that I know that the Earth is not a ball, how does all this other information that is out there, how does that fit in? Because I can't just ignore it and just pretend it's not there, because it is.
That's exactly right. It is there. And Martin, going back to the 21 Faces of God by Robert Bonomo, the documentary you and I talked about earlier, I've got to tell you, sometimes it's very painful, because when I was watching that documentary, I was thinking to myself, there's just so much I still don't know.
Yeah.
And that's right. I mean, that's another thing. I think a lot of people get stuck on that too. It's just, I want to be where I feel knowledgeable. I want to be where I feel comfortable. And so I feel knowledgeable and comfortable here. So I'm going to disregard anything else or poke and make fun at other things, at other presentations or people that are bringing something to the table that is not in my comfort zone. And what I do, and I know that you do and other people do, is that we push the envelope and we get into places where, like, all right, I don't know anything about this, but now I'm learning about it. And it's a process of learning.
Yep. And being hungry for knowledge, having a hunger, a desire to learn and to grow and expand and to move forward and to change. That desire, I think, that's the big word, desire. A hunger, a passion for knowledge, a passion to grow, a passion to change and evolve and adapt. And many of us don't have that passion for whatever reason. And also responsibility, because the more you learn, the more responsibility you then have on your shoulders. You now can't blame your religion or your God in your religion. You can't blame the powers that be, in quotation marks. You can't blame the reptilians. You can't blame Satan or the devil, right? The more you grow, the more you realize, hang on a minute, there's no one to blame but myself. If I'm going to blame anyone, it should be me, right? And that responsibility scares people. And it's nothing, I think it's just something we've been programmed with over many incarnations. And it's just harder for other people to break away from. We're still looking to be led. We're still looking, outside instead of looking within and saying, who am I? How can I change this? How can I change myself? How am I a reflection of what's happening in the world? So that self-reflection is what most people fear, because it requires change, and people don't like change.
You're absolutely right. 100% right. That's how most people operate.
And that never ends, Mike. That never ends. I struggle with that even now. Right now, my soul is telling me I should try and get onto a raw vegan diet if I can. That's like my next stage. So I'm going to do some bowel cleansing. I put some herbs and stuff where I'm going to completely cleanse my body and then start this. But I can't tell you enough how I'm struggling, Mike. I'm struggling because I love my food. I'm a chef. So even as a vegan, I still eat really well because I'm a chef. So we cook extremely exciting vegan food. So we eat just as well as non-vegan. So making this transition is probably the hardest thing I've done so far. I'm struggling. So, that never ends. Like I'm saying, that transformation, that fear of change, I'm going through it even now. And I know I'll go through it for the rest of my physical life, regardless of how much I think I'm enlightened or how much I think I've grown. That never ends.
No, it never ends. And even myself, I don't eat meat, but I'm a pescatarian, and I'm trying now to move off the fish also, Martin. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's this process of, okay, I've got to do this. And is that part of you that's saying, okay, so what are the next steps?
Yeah.
So it is a process. So I'm not trying to pick on anybody. It's just that, and we're not picking on anybody. What we're saying is, but there are people that will throw rocks in our direction. is what I'm
Yeah,
saying, And I'm not interested in throwing rocks back in your direction. I'm really not. In fact, I don't have any rocks in my bucket to throw back. I just want to continue to move forward. But like you said, it is a process that everybody has to go through, and it is never ending, because once that ends, there's going to be something else that's going to present itself that you're going to have to make decisions about, which are going to change your lifestyle.
yeah,
There's always going to be something, always. Some things will be bigger than others, but something's always going to roll up on your doorstep and present itself, and you're going to have to make decisions and choices.
absolutely, absolutely. And something I've learned as well, Mike, is I'm now certain that whilst I'm in control of my reality now, really the universe is in control of me. God, or the universe, whatever you want to call it, source, is actually really driving me forward, because I've opened myself to that. When I released the cosmic egg, I remember thinking, do you know what? My work is done. I'm done. And I've released this. I can't go any further than this. This is as far as I go. I'm now going to turn off YouTube, turn off my phone, and just live a normal life. Right? No such luck. The convention comes up. Right? After the convention, I was like, this is it. I've done the convention. I'm done. And then I had the cosmic wheel stuff come up. Out of the blue, the cosmic wheel, time, all that came together. I was like, oh my God, it gets even deeper. Then I said to myself, after the cosmic wheel, I'm completely done. I'm not doing this anymore. There's nothing more to do. I'm tired. I've had enough. And then there's the TV stuff coming up now, out of the blue. So it's almost like the universe says, that journey, Martin, is not up to you. You're on a journey and you've got to keep walking. If you stop walking, you might as well die.
Yeah.
There's no point in it being existing. Keep moving forward.
That's exactly right. You keep moving forward. And, there are many of us that are here that we came here, we incarnated to do the work that we're doing.
Absolutely.
And I've always said this, Martin, I don't know what keeps me doing what I'm doing. This radio show is going to be 5 years old in about 6 months. And there are times when it's crossed my mind where I said, why am I still doing this? And then there's this little voice in my head that says, oh, no, you don't. You're going to keep going because there's more stuff that needs to be discussed. There's more things that need to be presented. You need to keep going.
Absolutely.
So that's just the way it works. There's a calling. And then once you become aware, consciously aware of that calling, you're in. You're in for the long haul. I mean, that's what I found.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite saying is, this journey, I didn't choose this journey. This journey chose me.
Yep.
Right? I didn't choose this path. This path chose me. Regardless of what I want to think, this was chosen for me. It's predestined. This is my journey, and I'm here to do that. And if I don't do that, then I'm going against God, if you like. I'm going against my calling. And that is just spiritual suicide as far as I'm concerned. So, we keep moving, Mike. We keep moving forward. And even if it looks like we're alone, and sometimes it does feel lonely, I put out a video or information, and it just seems like it's empty. There's no one listening. No one listening. Just a handful of people. And I see other people with videos on Flat Earth, and they're just repeating the same thing over again, and they're getting all the attention. Everyone's listening to them. And it's like, why am I doing this? People don't care. People don't want this next step. They're happy just regurgitating the same stuff over and over again. So why am I doing this? And like you're saying, that voice keeps coming in and says, no, that's not your problem. Your job is to just put it out there, let the rest sort itself out.
That's exactly right. Well, a fantastic discussion, Martin, really. I really enjoy our chats because it's nice when you connect with somebody who's on the same page. It always makes the conversations go a lot easier, so I really enjoy our discussions. Now, the rest of the show, folks, is going to be Martin presenting his cosmic clock, unless you have anything else you want to wrap up with.
No, that's it. I'll get straight into it.
And that concludes another Sage or Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the description box below. And as always, I would like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can find all my social media and web links by visiting my hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to check out my music and album releases. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone with the next show. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
Do it right. Come with me and follow me on the black sheep.